Oh, yes, it was.
That's good.
Whatever. Yep. Sometimes it's really hot. So I mean, and then I went like a few years where I just kind of, I know when it's a little long. Yeah, it's just.
She did mine, yeah, she did mine.
Oh, yeah. Well, I did.
No, I didn't. I put it there. I don't need
And then I
to.
found someone told me about this, and I thought, well, I'll try it. I went out there and I said.
7 p.m. I'll call this meeting of the Common Council to order. If you could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Move next to roll call for Treasurer Aldridge.
Carolyn Pearson, Richard Traeger,
Present.
Brian Garrison,
Present.
Dale Seward,
Here.
Mike Shockley.
Present.
All right, thank you. The council's been presented with the minutes from the July 3rd regular meeting. Are there any additions, subtractions, deletions, or amendments to be made to this set of minutes?
I move the minutes of the Common Council July 3rd meeting be approved as presented.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the minutes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll move next to reports from committees, boards, commissions, and departments. Are there any questions for our department heads or the mayor? Going once. All right, we'll move next to report from area plan commission. Councilman Seward.
Nothing really to report. It was just a standard meeting.
Thank you, sir. We'll move next to report regarding community center project. Councilman Seward or Shockley, would you like to provide an update on the project?
We had a dinner today for a fundraiser. We are waiting on doors right now. The contractor had ordered the doors 3 months ago. And they never come in. And so we checked and went back and did away with the order and asked Mr. What if he would order them for him. And since then, that is what has happened. We went in Sunday, Jeff and I did, and put some brackets up on the wall and picked up the metal and stuff off the floor. Tomorrow we plan on putting a door on the front so we can at least get in and out of the building without one of the doors being completely closed off with plywood. And we're gonna hopefully start cleaning it up and getting it ready to be cleaned up so we can get ready to top off the floor so we can start building walls. That's the next project, is getting it cleaned up so we can seal the top seal of the floor.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Seward, anything else to report?
No, it's going real well. The fundraiser we had today, we spent a little money to get that going, and we at the very least doubled our money. So, you know, we did well.
Yeah, that's where I was going next. Ms. Daly?
I have received in the mail today, as you may, I'm sure, are aware, in my email to you. If I could give this, is a copy of the letter that I had received from North Central Health Services.
Thank you.
So I know I had explained the situation in an email, so this is why we are. Because we don't own the building, and as they state in the letter, they're unable to grant to a government entity that. So we are proceeding with fundraisers and volunteers to see the building to completion, and hopefully donations.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions for Councilman or Ms. Daly? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to new business. The first item is discussion of zoning assignments for unassigned properties. On August 6th, you were provided with a memorandum reflecting how some of the property owners and neighbors felt about zoning assignments as well as my recommendations to the stated parcels. On your table when you showed up, I drafted a resolution 2017-7, which reflects my recommendations to the council, partially based on the request of property owners and neighbors, unless the property owner desired for the zoning to remain the same. Some of the parcels are zoned S1. The city of Delphi does not recognize an S1 zoning district, nor do we have an agricultural zoning district. So for those, I believe in the most case, my recommendation was to zone those U1. I know we have Snowburgers, Mr. Corson, Ms. Ayers here. If the council so desires, I'd like to have an opportunity to hear them speak, as well as any other adjacent or property owners, if we have any. Mr. Watson, I think you're back there. So Snowburgers.
Everett Snowburger, and Jeff and I own property on the north side of East Main Street, west of the, was it 350 connector? So consequently, we got notification in the mail. Did not get it in adequate time to have a written response since we were in Cleveland last week. But from experience, the property south of Main Street, west of the Hoosier Heartland, floods frequently. And I realize, as Mayor Evans said, the city of Delphi does not recognize anything as S1 or agriculture on the zoning. The problem with that property, it's in the floodplain, and it's prone to flooding extremely frequently, typically every 3 to 5 years, 7 years. And water is typically anywhere from 1 to 2 to 8 to 10 feet deep on the property, depending on where you're at. So in my opinion, something remaining as agriculture would be better, but since the city of Delphi does not recognize that or doesn't have one in the zoning ordinance, U1 would be the most restrictive use of the property as the city of Delphi could recognize it. And with it being such prone to flooding, the zoning ordinance the city of Delphi has requires a variance for the issuance of a building permit in the U1 district, unless you amended the zoning ordinance for the city of Delphi according to what was presented to me on the Board of Zoning Appeals about 2 months ago. And then the flood overlay district requires additional permits from the Department of Natural Resources to do any construction in the flood hazard area, plus offsets for any fill that are filled in, to have additional wetlands areas replace it or flood areas replace it. So consequently, I think probably your best recommendation is to go with the U1 that the mayor has suggested. But if you elected to create a new zoning to recognize agriculture or even forestry or something like that, that would be a better recommendation in my opinion. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Snowberger. Any questions for Mr. Snowberger? Mr. Corson, Ms. Ayers?
Yes, I'm Lynn Corson, and my wife Janet Ayers. We reside at 6678 West, 200 North. It's immediately east of the Whiteman addition. We purchased the property many years ago, 31 years ago, because of it had been a farm throughout the history of the county. And we were offered the opportunity to buy property immediately to the west of us by Louise Whiteman, for whom the Whiteman addition is named. And it's zoned agriculture currently. We bought it from Ms. Whiteman primarily to separate us from the Whiteman addition, from the residential development there, and to hopefully preclude any other residential development from occurring. We currently cash rent the property to a local farmer for corn and bean production. And frankly, we hope that it remains zoned as agricultural land, because it is a very important part of our farm.
All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Corson, or Ms. Ayers, do you have any plans to change the ground to perhaps pasture land or an orchard or anything else in the foreseeable future?
Well,
I talked to Mr. Wagner today, Doug Wagner of the APC, and he informed me that if we zoned it, if we zoned it anything, really, it doesn't matter what we zoned it, that your agricultural use would be legally non-conforming, but you would be able to continue as we had signed the zoning designation after you had been engaged in that practice. He informed me that if you changed from corn and beans or wheat to pasture land or orchards, then that may trigger where you would be beyond non-conforming, I guess, in violation of the ordinance.
well, I would be concerned about that. We have a good relationship and have been with the farmer who currently cash rents it. But should he decide not to, we'd probably let the ground go fallow, or find another farmer who would be willing to cash rent it.
They would be standing in line.
I'm sorry?
They would be standing in line to cash rent.
Okay, can I write that?
They would.
So with Carolyn's assurance, we won't be concerned about that, but should something untoward happen, we would like it to remain classified as agriculture.
Maybe we ask what it means to be non-conforming, and at some point in the future, could the city claim that in eminent domain for some purpose?
Those might be two different questions. Ms. Martin, do you want to tackle this?
Sure, so the non-conforming would be legal to proceed that way. You wouldn't be required, I don't even believe at that point, to have a variance. I would think of it as kind of like you're grandfathered in. You don't need to change what you do, even though the zoning is going to be redesignated potentially. And now eminent domain would be an entirely separate thing. That would be basically should the city force a purchase on you, which is incredibly rare. That's a completely separate issue. I don't believe the city would have any, I have never heard of any plans to eminent domain that area. I thought this was just a zoning, is that correct?
Yeah, this is just
Okay,
zoning.
just to rezone, so there's no talk of any purchase or anything like
So
that.
it really doesn't matter what it's zoned then.
Correct, that's correct.
We can keep it as a farm.
Yes, now the reason he was asking if you're changing it to, what was the classification, pasture,
Like
all
an
these other.
orchard or pasture, there may be other items.
So basically, as long as you're going to continue to cash rent it for the purposes that you are currently renting it for, it would be legally non-conforming, which sounds threatening, but really it's basically you'd be grandfathered in and allowed to do what you're already doing.
And that's in writing and that's legal, so we don't have a hassle down the road.
We could put it in writing.
No.
That makes you feel
That
good.
would make
But
us feel
it's, and it's right under the zoning
And
ordinance.
this will have a conservation easement on it, so it will never be developed. It's a part of the original history of the town of Delphi, settled by one of the first settlers. So I would hope that Delphi would appreciate the history of the farm. We are on the National Trust of Historic Places, National Register of Historic Places. So I would hope the city of Delphi would recognize the significance of this farm.
It was probably a different organization than the council, but at one time, not too many years ago, there was discussion of a TIF district.
And I don't know where the Carroll County TIF district, how far north it goes in that
It
area.
was the same area.
Because it was the same area
Yeah.
that we're talking about.
Okay.
Did anything become of that?
It is a TIF district. Now, I don't know the boundaries, how far north it goes, but it is an established TIF district.
Same property.
I never received a notification.
I'm not sure if it goes that far north where your property would be in it. All
Yeah. Okay.
right, thank you.
Yes,
Mr.
thank
Watson?
you.
Does it change property taxes? There was a big meeting about that.
I was thinking
A couple
that,
ABC meetings ago, they discussed it quite thoroughly.
I was thinking that however you used it is however you were taxed, whether or not,
The land use.
yeah, whether or not it was zoned one way or the other. Is that correct, Mackenzie?
That's how I understand it, actually, what she's saying, the assessment, so, I mean, when they do an assessment for tax purposes, it takes into consideration the land use. I would wanna follow up on that to be 100% on that, and that would be a good question that we could ask. But just changing the zoning itself doesn't automatically change the tax.
I'm thinking when I've looked it up on Beacon that the classification, even, so let's say like the Bowen property, which is agricultural use, but it's zoned U1, the classification on there is agricultural or whatever they have.
It's not always consistent with what we're calling for the zoning anyways,
Right.
so by changing it to something different doesn't automatically change the tax, no.
Any other members of the public neighboring a property or owning property which we're discussing? All right, I'll open the floor to council comments.
I have questions.
Yeah, no, that's.
Yes, sir. Again?
Yeah, you say that it wouldn't make any difference which way they zoned it? You could always change it? Is that what you're telling us? Or
No,
would they have to go back and change it if they wanted to build something on it? Or,
can you ask your question again? I'm sorry, you lost me. Are you talking about the for tax purposes, or?
no, I'm talking about what the lady back there was talking, that it is part of the historic property in Delphi.
Okay,
And if you zone that, you won,
sure,
or whatever.
sure.
Say a landowner comes in and wants to buy a partial or a portion of that, would that have to be go back through the board to be rezoned? Or your addition, a housing addition, or something like that?
If I'm understanding you correctly, no, because then when they purchase it, it would just be whatever it's zoned at that time.
Okay.
Does that make sense? I think
Yeah,
that
I
makes
mean-
question.
It depends on what, if they were to sell their property, or anybody in here were to sell their property, they may have to change it. If we zone a U1 and they want to put commercial space in there, then they would have to go to the area plan commission and request a rezone.
And if it doesn't require a rezone, maybe it's just a variance that they need granted. So, but that would be changing the use of the property, not the zone necessarily.
Okay.
Do we have any further comments? Are there any particular parcels, or do we want to go through these step 1 through 25?
Obviously, there was some misunderstanding from the letter that was received. So the reason we're doing this is just a recommendation from the city council
Yes.
to the board of zoning,
To the area planning
the
commission.
area plan.
And then they make a recommendation back to us, and at that point, we can adopt an ordinance to zone these properties as such. But statutorily, because back in May, I believe, we had a resolution that asked to initiate this proposal, because the area planning commission has to make a recommendation to the city council before we can adopt any zoning ordinance changes. But in this particular case, they referred it back to us. I think there were some questions about perhaps the Delphi United Methodist Church parcel, possibly some other parcels.
So you say there's 25?
Yes, ma'am, that I identified, or parts of 25.
Well, I'm gonna say that I certainly didn't have enough time to study this, and I don't, I think this is an important issue. I think it's a potentially long-lasting issue for Delphi and the growth area, and it impacts our citizens and citizens out in the county also. I just wanna make sure we get this right. And I didn't have enough time to study this, so if y'all want to vote on it, I'm going to abstain because I don't feel like I have enough, I don't feel like I studied it enough or was able to study it enough and to make a decision tonight. Plus, we've had a possibility of maybe changing some You know, have we looked into anything in regards to what Mr. Snowberger said about maybe changing and having an agricultural designation? Is that even possible, or,
I would think that it would be.
okay? I would think maybe that might be prudent to research that, maybe, would it not? I would just, I don't want to overlook anything.
I guess normally you wouldn't think within city limits that would be agricultural, but hence reason that it's not a designated.
Well, and if we had that designation, you know, that would take care of different things with Lynn Corson and some other people too. And if we could designate that, then they wouldn't have, there wouldn't be any question, because it would be there and that'd be the end of it. So I think it might be something that's worth looking into. This has not been rectified for several years. You know, to me, another month's not gonna kill anybody. But that's just me. I don't know what you guys think.
Any other comments from the council?
Well, I'm like Dale, when I get this stuff at 1 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon, I ain't got enough time to study all the way through, you know what I'm saying? I think we ought to table it until all of us have a chance, just like Mr. Garrison said, he got it, but he hadn't really had a full chance to really go through everything. I think personally that we ought to table it till next month, so we can understand more about it.
I'd like to-
I don't know how
I'd like-
everybody else feels, that's how I feel.
I'd like to talk to some of the people that send emails in. Some of them aren't here. I'd like to make contact with them and, you know, see and talk to them.
Obviously, some in Crestwood think they're about to be annexed.
Well, I included her email in that. She said she didn't think it had anything to do with annexation, but if the subject ever came up, she doesn't want to be annexed.
It's
Fair enough.
that misunderstanding thing that I think needs to be
Cover your bases.
covered.
So to have enough information, what would you like me to do before next month's meeting?
I'd like to see that agricultural distinction researched. I mean, that's really, that and, you know, a solid understanding of will taxes vary with the new zoning area and why it would or wouldn't, I think would be good. Those are the two things that come to my mind.
And I think when someone took the time to respond to your letter, we should respond back, saying, this is what. The reason is that it's happening.
Yes, sir.
Question. I looked at the tax assessments this evening, and the one that's number 19 on your list,
Yes, sir.
yeah, 002, is 6.991 acres. And the legal description on Form 11 that I received says annexed 1997.
Yes, sir.
The other one, which is 2.124 acres, number 17,
18.
excuse me, 18, doesn't have that same notation on the form. It could very well be a mistake on the part of the assessor's office, the county assessor's office. But it was my understanding when I received the late night telephone call from a previous mayor telling me that he was about to annex all of the land west of us, I assumed it was both parcels, as you've listed them here.
So the assessor's showing that 18, as I have it listed, isn't within city limits?
I don't know. It's not on my form. I'm not disputing, I think it is. I'm just bringing to your attention that it doesn't say in the legal description that it was annexed in 1997, like the other one does.
Makes you wonder then, doesn't it?
I'm sorry?
Makes you wonder then, doesn't it?
Well, it's just a question for this discussion, I guess.
I can contact the assessor tomorrow.
If it's on your list, do you have access to the beacon or whatever?
Yeah, that's what it says, tax setting is Delphi.
Okay. Then it must be just an error on the part of the assessor's office.
Yeah, because your residence, the tax setting says Deer Creek Township. So just on the other side of the county line. So I would assume it's just an error on the formula.
Yeah,
But I can still contact the assessor.
okay, thank you.
We have any further discussion regarding what was presented as Resolution 2017-7?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to know, did you contact all these people?
I sent letters to all these people, I believe.
Okay. Because I would like to have the opportunity to go talk to some of them.
Like I say,
Myself?
everybody that I heard back from, I should have summarized or included their email. But these are all the property owners.
Okay.
Who are the property owners of, my cards here. The one that was S and
Double E LLC. Or S&W Enterprise.
S and W Enterprise, who's that? What?
Mr. Stoneberger and Mr. Watson.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Do we have any further questions? We have a motion.
Motion to table. Second.
Oh, sorry, I can't make the motion. You wanna make it?
I thought consider Dale as a motion. Okay.
I'll make that motion. I would make the motion that we table this for 30 days for further research and to make sure we get it right.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to table discussion for 30 days. Do we have any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, property owners, neighbors.
Thank you.
We move next, proposed ordinance 2017-11, read by title alone, an ordinance authorizing establishing a bureau in the office of the clerk treasurer and establishing wedding solemnization service charges to be known as the wedding solemnization ordinance pursuant to Indiana Code 3613 et sec and other relevant statutes. Clerk treasurer Aldrich, do you want to kind of give the background as to why they're being presented with this today?
Over a period of time, and since I came here, the county no longer performs ceremonies. So, and they tell them as they get their license over there, go over to the clerk's office, they'll marry you. And by law, I, the mayor, and Judge Wellnuts are allowed to perform ceremonies. The inconvenience is they walk in as soon as they've got their license, they don't say please. It's marry me now, I only have half an hour. There usually isn't a thank you. I know. Well, I'm not allowed to charge without having an ordinance. It's a total disruption, and that's fine. They've got to have some place to go. But if they went anywhere else, they would pay for that service and a lot more. I don't mind doing it. I went down to the park, I went over to Adams Mill. I've tried to be, I try to be nice about it, but you know, sometimes you're really busy. I think Judge Wellnuts enjoys doing it. And he thoroughly enjoys it. For my office, it comes as a lot of inconvenience, and usually at a bad time. And then I can swallow that too, except I don't even get a thank you afterwards, in most cases. So I really would like to be it addressed. I've said that since I came into office here. if the clerk's office at the courthouse refuses to do it and sends them over to us, we're loaded with enough work in there. But we'll do it. It's up to you. It was a thought. The other thought is, one of the issues that we've had is every year, we try, and we don't do it every year, provide a Christmas party for our employees. So if we did take that charge, that money would go into that fund that we use. That would be money that would not be taxpayers' money. That would go into that fund, or could go into that fund and take care of issues like that. It's not that, God, don't get that wrong, I'm not making money off this. There's no way that we would charge the fee and that I'm making the money. The money would stay in the clerk treasurer's office and be utilized however you saw fit. So, that was the thoughts.
But could you this allow for the mayor and the city court judge to charge for the same services under that matrimony bureau?
I was unaware that Judge Williams was also doing this, so I would have to amend it a bit. It kind of just encompasses the office. So I'll have to tweak it a bit. And it does have several provisions in there that specify that it does not go towards any official, any specific person. It's for the city, it's a taxpayer. And there's a provision in there that can waive the fee if you so wish to. And then the schedule I put in there is a proposed one. But yeah, I would need to change that.
Well, let's see, the third paragraph down where it says, the clerk treasurer from time to time conducts solemnization of marriages pursuant to authority conferred under Indiana Code 31-7-5-1. Apparently that Indiana Code was repealed, according to Judge Wellness.
Okay, well,
Check on that. I conferred with him because I wasn't, other than listening to Leanne's stories with this. He has conducted over 100 in his year and a half that
oh wow.
he's been. In fact, the county usually just gives out Craig's name and he will go within 10 minutes notification, but he doesn't have anything else to do compared to your office. So I think, I think this feels a little incorrect when it doesn't include him.
Absolutely, and I was unaware until just now, so I would have to fix that all anyways. That's a great point. It would need to be updated to include the hand mayor.
And then on the very last section, duration and effective date, the very, very last paragraph,
Yeah.
right prior to the signatures.
Sure.
It has July 1st, 1996. Is that correct? Or?
No, this was kind of just a draft for you guys to take a look at, so there are a lot of changes that you can do.
Well, Craig's recommendation in that he has been doing it, David, a year and a half, and has done so many. He thoroughly enjoys it. He never